Hi, and welcome back to Soda Pop Crafts. I'm Sierra. I'm glad you're here. Today, I don't know. Hi, Miss. She's been needy all day. She's been out. She's got food. I don't know. She just wants snuggles. Hi. Hello, Miss. Come here. Say hi. Come say hi. Say hi, my friends. This is Kaya. She's always under the table next to me when I'm working. And she's been feeling real excited that the weather's getting warmer and extra needy. Huh, baby girl. Anyway, right now it's just kind of a chill night. So maybe we just chit chat while I make a Pokeball for my friend. My good friend, Mr. C, we'll call him. I don't like to post like my kids, so I'm not gonna post my friends' kids, like their names or anything. So we'll just call him Mr. C. He is so fun. Love him. And all of my kids are obsessed with him too, because he's a year older than my son. And so it's a good time to have brother's friend be a big brother too, and into all the cooler stuff that my son has yet to get into. He's the one that got my kids into Pokemon, was his birthday party, so it is definitely a relationship that the kids are super into. So I do a magic ring. I just found this on Pinterest. Magic ring with 6 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll pull it tight, but not too tight. I always like end up tightening completely after I've done the second row, because otherwise it's really hard to get into the stitches. And we're going to do an increase row, so 2 single crochets in each stitch. I made 3 of these for my kids the weekend we were sick. Well, they were sick. And so I've got the pattern pretty close to memorized. So I put a stitch marker in at the beginning of the round, because otherwise it's hard to keep track of the stitches and when the round ends and when you're starting a new one. It's a lot easier if you just throw a stitch marker in. I use stitch markers the most with amigurumi, but I use them with lots of other things too. I use them with tote bags. I use them with pattern tests a lot, because it's my job as a pattern tester to make sure that the stitch count is right and make sure that things are adding up. So adding in stitch markers is usually really helpful to figure that out. Okay, so now we've got 2 rows. I'll pull this tight. I'm gonna raise my armrests and grab my bobby. Is it spring where you're from? My husband and I have noticed a lot of sneezing this week. So it's been a nice sign that warm weather is here, hopefully to stay. It was chilly this weekend. We had warm weather Thursday and then a thunderstorm, and it cooled everything back off. So now we're going to do an increase and then a single crochet and an increase and a single crochet, and alternate that all the way around. So yeah, the weather cooled everything off. I haven't looked at the weather for this upcoming week to see what things are shaken out to be. So we'll see. Hopefully it warms up. It would be really nice to put my coat tree away. It takes up a lot of space in my entryway, which is so nice when it is not there in the summer. I even grabbed all of our coats and put them in my kids' bedroom closet. They have a really, really big closet in their bedroom, so I use a lot of it for storage. Anyway, so I put our winter coats in there thinking like, alright, they're easy to grab if we need them, but then I can at least thin down the coat tree, because right now because it's like that time of year where some days are warm and some days are not. We have sweatshirts, we have light jackets, we have warm jackets, we have scarves, we have all the things on the coat tree, and it's for 5 people, it's pretty bulky. Okay, so we're starting another round. This time we're going to do an increase and then 2 stitches of single crochets, because we're trying to make a rounded pokeball. So we don't want to like increase too much to where it's going to be flat. We want that nice cup shape. So increase, single crochet, single crochet, increase, and then you just repeat that until you get back to the stitch marker. I've been dealing with like a stress breakout for what feels like forever. It's probably been like a month or 2. And so now with like the seasonal sniffles, my face is just itchy. So anybody else? Where's my spring allergy friends at? My husband's spring allergies are far worse than mine, so I know I shouldn't complain, but it drives me crazy when my face is itchy. That's like why my hair is up all the time. Partly that, and partly I just don't like having it on my neck as much anymore. I started putting my hair up when my oldest was a baby, and it just never came back down. So I try to leave it down when I've washed it. I did wash it today, but it's tied really loose. It was bugging me. So, but I've noticed that if I cut it short and try and force myself to have it down, then it just gets extra annoying because it's on my face all the time. But if I have it long and I try and have it down, then I at least have the option of like throwing it up in a ponytail or a messy bun. So we're sticking with it long for a minute while we retrain myself how to have it down. Honestly, I think I would have an easier time having it down if we had central air. Right now we just have a window unit. I'm actually kind of worried about filming when that thing gets turned on all the time because it's kind of loud. And even though I'm in a separate room, it is quite loud. So we'll have to figure out. I do have some microphones, so maybe I'll have to start miking myself if it gets to be too much of a background noise, or if I want to crochet in the living room and watch TV while we crochet. Okay, so now this round, increase, and then 3 single crochets. You get the picture. I think we go up to 4 increases, and then we do just a couple rounds of single crochets to get the cup shape, and then switch to black, switch to white, and then do the decreases. So I'm just gonna work on this for a minute. Okay, we are to the color change. So what I do is I start my stitch and I pull loop through, and then I grab the other color and pull through both loops, because then it just gives me the top stitch of that color, which in this case isn't super crucial because I'm going to be putting the pokey button over like the color change spot. Now before I tie my tails together, I do the next stitch so that it's a little more secure. And then, now that these are more secure, I'll trim the red. And then I just knot them together because it's the inside of the amigurumi, so nobody's gonna notice. And I do it pretty snug so that it doesn't come undone. And then I just continue with the color that I'm working on. And then in a couple rows we will switch to white, and then we'll start doing our decreases, stuff it, do the little button, sew it on. From here it's pretty straightforward. I mean, now that I have the color change, it is easier to tell where, the round ends, but I still put the stitch marker in because when we get to white, I'm gonna want it close by as I do my decrease rounds. Okay, we're coming up on our other color change. Okay, so I go in and pull the black through, and then I'll use the white to go through both loops, and then I'll do the next stitch to kind of secure it in place before I tie everything down. It also makes it a little bit easier to tie it tight if you're not just working with one loop. Okay. Color change done. So I'm going to trim the black yarn because I'm done. And then the tail of the white and the tail of the black I'm going to tie together. That is one nice thing about amigurumi, is you don't have to weave in as many ends. If you don't like sewing, you won't like amigurumi, because a lot of amigurumi projects require you to sew pieces together. But I don't mind it, so. Okay, so there's our color change. So the pokey button is gonna go right there, so it'll cover up those color changes. So now we do 3 rows of 1 single crochet all the way, and then we'll start doing our decreases. So I will be back. Okay, I did the 4 decrease, but I wanted to show you how I do a decrease if you've never done one. So what you do is you go in a stitch, pull a loop, and then you go in the next stitch and pull a loop, and then pull through all 3 loops, and it joins 2 stitches together. So when I say that I'm doing a decrease, that's typically how I do it. There are variations on it, but that's a basic guide. So for the decreases, you do the opposite of the red. So you do 4 decrease, 4 single crochet, decrease, and then you do, actually you start with a decrease. So you do decrease, 4 single crochet, decrease, 4 single crochet. So now I just did a decrease on the row with 3 single crochets. So I will do 3 single crochets, and then I will do another decrease. I can share the pin that I got this pattern on in the description below, and if you'd like to make one, it's pretty self-explanatory. It does give you like the row counts and everything too, which is helpful in amigurumi. Especially counting is really important because it can change the whole look of something when you're working with something this small by adding an extra stitch somewhere or missing a stitch somewhere. So if you aren't diligent about counting, which is why the stitch markers come in handy, then your project is just going to look off. So that's also why a lot of amigurumi artists have pattern testers, because they want to make sure that their stitch counts are correct for the look that they're going for. after this row, we'll do the decrease, 2 single crochet, decrease, 2 single crochet, and then we're gonna stuff, and then we will do the last couple rounds, and then we might stuff a little bit more at the end, but it's a lot easier to stuff towards the end, and then if you need to add some, you only have to add a little bit through the small hole. Otherwise it gets kind of difficult to add stuffing to a really small project through a small hole. The good thing about the decrease rows too is that they just go faster and faster because you're eliminating the number of stitches that you're doing. So now we're going to do decrease, add the stitch marker back on, and then we'll do 2 single crochet, decrease, 2 single crochet, decrease, etc. to the end of the round. I realized I do have a pattern that I kind of made myself. I like took a different pattern and just like heavily edited it for what I needed. I made my son's class a whole bunch of marble fidget toys at the end of, well, for Valentine's last year, and then some of the teachers caught wind of the fact that I made a bunch and they then wanted me to make some more. So I ended up making probably 40 or so for the kindergarten classes that they then divided up amongst their classrooms so that if kids needed something to fidget with during story time, they had some options. And I mean, they had more than just the fidgets, the marble fidgets that I made, but adding those into the mix, they loved them because they were really quiet because they're crocheted items. So maybe I'll do that crochet pattern next if I can remember how I did it. I'm pretty sure I remember. It's not too hard. So maybe I'll do a tutorial on that one. Okay, so we're at the point now that this hole is getting kind of small, so we're gonna stuff and then we'll do our last couple rows. How much you stuff is totally up to you, and how firm you want the Pokeball. I want mine soft because I know my kids are throwing them, so I don't overstuff. I want them squishy. Since this is for a friend, I will probably just do similar. I may add it a little firmer because he is more into Pokemon than my kids are, but we'll just see at the end. So now we're down to the decrease, single crochet, decrease, single crochet, and then it'll be just decreases on the final row, and then I'll show you how to close it up. For the last round, I don't use the stitch marker because I know it's just 6 decreases, so I just count them. But see how even just one row made quite a difference on how big the hole is. So I think I'll add just a touch more stuffing. It does get hard to get it out of the way of the hook, so just be careful with your stuffing. So then, as you can see, the hole got quite small. So we are gonna leave a long tail for sewing, and then you'll just hide the tail in amigurumi. But there is the basic shape, and then when we do the button, we'll put it over this. For sewing it shut, I just put on a yarn needle, and then I loop through each stitch just to kind of cinch it up a bit. So there's only 6 stitches, it doesn't take long. Okay, so that's looping through all of them. You pull it tight, but you don't want to create like a pucker here, so then I will take my needle and kind of try and get a knot somewhere else, because I do want to secure the yarn. And don't worry about it blending in, it will, don't worry. See, there's a knot there, and if you look close you can see it, but there's so many other knots that you're not really focused on it. And then you're welcome to do as many knots as you want, and then I just push the needle through to the other side so that the tail is hidden, and then I cut my yarn, and then you can use your crochet hook or the needle and just push the tail back in, and it's like it wasn't even there. So come back for the button. I don't think I mentioned the hook size I'm using. It does not say a hook size on the pattern, but with Ami you kind of want to err on smaller stitches so that the stuffing doesn't come through. So if your yarn recommends like a size 5, then size down. This yarn recommends a 5.5, but I want tight stitches, so I'm using a 4, if you can see that. Just because you don't want to have stuffing popping through your project. So for the button you do a magic ring. There's tons of tutorials for magic rings if you've never done one. Of course my yarn is freaking out. Okay, and then you're gonna do let's see, 8 single crochets. Okay, so now that we have 8, we are going to take our black and add a row of increases. Okay, so looks a little messy. We have our button. Ta-da! There is a little spot here. I'm just gonna cover that when I sew it. So you're gonna find your weird spot where you changed colors, and we're just gonna put the button over it, and it's gonna look really good. So I am just gonna use a yarn needle, and I would say if you're gonna sew on bigger pieces that have like more particular placement, you might want to like clip them in place. This is a small piece that is going mostly just in place to cover up a gross spot, so that's not a big deal. So we just eyeball it. So you're gonna go in from the front, loop into a stitch in the ball, and then come back through one of the stitches, and then go in down into the next stitch, find a spot on the back that's going to be covered. That's another tricky bit. Find a spot that's going to be covered by the button, snag a stitch, pull it through. I really don't mind sewing pieces on. I think it's kind of, as someone who sews, it's fun to have something that, excuse you miss, it's fun to have something that you can know exactly where the stitches go versus making your stitches tiny and perfect, if you know what I mean. So then as I get most of the way around, I'm going to snag these tails that I left and just tuck them in behind the button so that when we're all done, everything's all hidden. Okay, we have gotten all the way around. So we're gonna secure our last stitch, and then we're gonna find another spot to make a knot and hide the tail. I will probably just hide a knot behind this top part and then tuck the tail in. And I will probably go in through the back to do it. Alright. Ta-da! Whoa! Ta-da! There's our completed Pokeball. Thanks for crocheting along with me. I will post the pattern below, and I will see you next time. Thank you for stopping by. If you like what you saw, like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're working on, and we can come up with some plans for future projects together. Bye!